everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. Do you know what? My Seattle retreat was just this past August, and so many fun creative ideas came out of that. I'll put a link to the video in the description box because it really is worth seeing. It was so much fun. But as I was driving down to Seattle, I made a stop to visit a former student of mine. Her name is Kathy, and I just love her to bits. And we met up for coffee and just had a really nice catch up. And while we were chatting, I commented on the blouse she had made. She was like, "Oh, I made this. I wanted to wear something that I made when I met with you today," because of course I was her sewing teacher. So she had on this little shirt that I just thought was the cutest thing. I couldn't believe she made it. I thought it looked like a Japanese designer. It was so beautiful. It had a little round neck and 3 ties, a little puff sleeve, a little peplum. Super adorable. And then the very next day, my retreat starts in Seattle, and one of the participants, Jane, mentioned that she wanted to turn her shirt into something that sounded just like my student Kathy's shirt, with the round neck, the ties, the peplum, the puff sleeve. And in fact, Jane had a name for that shirt, and I guess it's quite a popular thing right now. I don't know. I missed the memo on that one, but I don't want to say the name here because I don't want to get a copyright strike, but I might be able to put up a screenshot. It's really cute. Kathy had taken a regular shirt pattern and changed it up to make that, which I thought was genius. But what I'm looking at here today is doing that same idea with this dress that I thrifted when we were in Seattle. And in fact, you know what? This is something that Jane had found. She put it back on the rack, unbeknownst to me. I come along right after her and scoop it up. At the time when I grabbed it, I just grabbed it because I love the color and the textures, the lace and the pleats, and I just thought it was really pretty. I didn't really piece it together that this would make that perfect top, right? It's got the sleeves already in place. I love these little sleeves, really pretty. The pleats go right up until where I probably would be able to put that peplum, and of course I can use the bottom of the dress to create that peplum. So that, I think, is going to work out pretty nicely. It is a little snug across the shoulders, but I'm hoping that by opening it up down the front and placing in those ties with a bit of leeway in between, that it gives me just a little bit more room. I did actually play around with putting it on backwards because there's not really a bust start, but well, there kind of is though, right? This yoke slants down. That essentially is a bust dart. So that sort of foiled my plan when I tried just putting it on backwards because it already has a zipper going down the back. So I thought that would save me some steps, but no, that shaping around the bust really has to be around the bust. The neck is a little bit high, but we'll see. Maybe by having it open for the jacket, I'll be okay with that. But here's what I'm thinking right now too, might be handy. This strip of lace across here has no stretch, but the denim fabric has a bit of stretch. This bigger piece of lace isn't on the back. And so I'm thinking I'm going to just remove that. That's going to give me, I think, a little bit more comfort right off the bat. While I was in Seattle with all the participants at the retreat, we stopped at a sewing store called Stitches right in the Capitol Hill area of Seattle, and I picked up 2 widths of grosgrain ribbon. And so the wider one, I can also use that to create a placket down the front, and then the narrower one I can use for the ties. So to get started on this, I think I'll be removing that lace first and then cutting the dress, probably just leaving seam allowance underneath that last strip of lace. That'll show me exactly what I have left to make the peplum. So if this goes as planned, which you know what, upcycling never goes as planned, but if this goes as planned, I think this will be a really quick one, and I think it's going to be really cute. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get busy. So this little dress is from Banana Republic. It's a size 8 and I'm more of a 10. And so it is a little tight here. So I'm going to be removing that lace. So I think the first thing I need to do is open up the sleeve head here. I'll just open that seam. And then if I'm making it into a jacket, I don't need the zipper. So I might as well just get rid of it and then sew up the center back seam. So that's a lot of stitch removal. And so I've got my favorite seam ripper, the Clover. There's a link to this one in the description. It's just a really nice fine point, super skinny and sharp and pointy. And that's going to be my good friend while I take this off. So I want to make sure I don't damage this lace. So as soon as I get a little gap in the stitches there, then I can go in just between the layers and pick my stitches like that, where I'm not damaging the fabric or the lace. And then my other favorite little gadget to make sure that I can see what I'm doing is this from Precision Quilting Tools. This helps to magnify what I'm looking at and gives me a little light as well. with those two things, I'm going to just head over to the kitchen table and do my seam ripping. So I took out that whole strip of lace from the front, and it left definite pinholes from the stitching. I'm hoping that comes out just with steam. And then I opened up here to be able to get that lace out. And then on the back, I opened up the little bit of the back neck to get that zipper out, and whatever I needed to do here to be able to just make a seam in the center back. So this zipper, I started to take it out, but that was a lot of seam ripping, right? So I was getting kind of tired of seam ripping, and I just wanted to show you that when you do have two very stable things like strong fabric and the strong zipper, you can just rip. So it does make it a lot easier. I did already take out the little back tack from the bottom. But yeah, you can, on a strong fabric like that, you can just pull it, especially if nobody's watching. So what I need to do very soon though, as soon as I work up the courage, I need to sew that center back seam and cut open the front, the center front. Eek. You know what? That's just like a little nerve-wracking. I've got to figure out like the exact center and come down there. And I have to cut off for the peplum. So that might need an extra cup of coffee for me to work up that courage. So the zipper is gone, and I need to sort of piece this all back together flat like that so that I can sew that center back seam. And I think I can do it all as one. Do you know what I mean? Like I can piece this all together and then just sew the seam and it'll open like that at the center back. I think that's fine. I mean, I could do it separate, this little facing piece, so that it folds that way. Oh, maybe that is nicer. Okay, let's do that. I'll just piece all of this part together and leave that facing free. And I just want that facing to stay out of my way, so I'll pin it back here. Okay, I guess it's time to finally hit the sewing machine. So I've got a pin holding back this facing and a second pin showing me where that facing is folded back so that I don't actually catch it. Both sides like that. And then I can sew that whole center back edge again. So here we go. I want that top edge, obviously, to be nicely together. Sewing right in the sewing line here, but then down here where the pleats and the lace start, I want quite a few pins down here to get all those little matching parts matched up. Alrighty, so that's where the zipper was, and I'm just going to sew right there, and then I'll be able to finish that little bit of the facing. Good. Okay. That is pretty good. So now I just want to get those two little bits of facing. They don't want to meet in the middle. That's okay. I will just sew these on top. And I'm just trying to get them to cover as much as I can, but it is fine. Lives are not at stake here. So that's fine. So that's what the inside of the back neck looks like. That's fine. I'll do a couple vertical lines there too, just to secure it. And the nice thing is that none of my stitches show on the outside. That lace just hides everything. That will do. Make sure all my little threads are trimmed up nicely. Good. Okay, now, scary part. Let's cut down that front. I'm stalling a bit before I cut down the front. I think it's smart if I cut off where it's going to join to the peplum. So basically, I'm going to be cutting, leaving just seam allowance width, I think below that line. Okay, the moment of truth. So I'm leaving about a thumb width below that line of stitching, and I'll start it off with just my little scissors, make it a little less scary, and then continue with my giant scissors. And I'm going around in a single layer rather than cutting right through the dress to be more accurate. Oh dear. That'll do. Okay, no more stalling. Now I really need to just cut right down the center front of this whole thing. So I'm bringing the shoulder seam together and I'll stick a pin. It's kind of nice having this opening because I can make sure I'm lined up nicely there. And then here you can see a little bit better what I was talking about, where there's kind of a bust dart built in. You see the width here and then it narrows. That's just exactly as if you sewed a dart there. But the way it's cut kind of just replaces a dart. Okay, side seams together here. So I just really want the whole thing in half nicely. Okay, here we go. Right up the front. No turning back now. Okay, so this is what I have left for the peplum. I might as well remove those little bits of darts from the back. And look at that. They put a back tack at the end of the dart, which I always do, and people say you shouldn't do. But I like it, and so does Banana Republic, apparently. Okay. And then the pockets I obviously don't need or want, so I might just be cutting those off. When I had it on, I kind of did like a hand span like this. That was the depth that I wanted the peplum. So let's just chop this whole thing into 4 pieces. Let's do it. First thing I'm going to do is just cut off that whole big hem. I'll definitely save that. Then I'm going to cut off this seam. That's the quickest way to get rid of that pocket and these big tags. Good. And now these can go in half. Yeah, I think I'll just do that one at a time. Okay, so these are going to get sewn together into one big long strip. It might make sense. I know this sounds crazy because I just sewed that center back seam, but I'm not happy with how that center back seam looks. Like I missed the original seam line, so I'm not happy with that already. So that's first strike against it. Now, the other thing to ponder is that just using the 3 gives me 1.5 times the circumference of the top, which might just be enough gathering. That's a thought. Okay, let's just try it with 1.5 times the gathering. So there's another seam here, but that's the center back below where I had sewn it closed. So it's really nice and perfect. I'm not worried about that. Yes, I think that this is plenty for the peplum. I don't think I need twice the amount. So this one with the seam is going to be my new center back though. So let's do it this way. And then no seams that come around to the front. That makes more sense. Good. So I will sew and then serge these side seams. If I didn't have a serger, I could just sew in zigzag, or I could get fancy and do either a little French seam or a flat felled seam. But it's going to be quickest and easiest for me to sew and then serge. In fact, you know what? It's not a lot of stress on this point, so I can just do a serge. Maybe I'll do that. Okay, here we go. This is just where the pocket was. And then while I'm here, I might as well gather the top of the peplum. So I'm going to switch the differential feed all the way to 2 and the stitch length as far as I can go. And you know what? I usually serge with the good side up, but for this, for gathering, I'm going to put the wrong side up so that if I need to pull the needle threads to increase the amount of gather, they'll be on this side. When I put the pieces right side together, that's going to be easier. So here we go. I'm pushing the seam allowance toward the back. That did not do a lot. This fabric is a little bit heavier, and so that gathering really did not much at all, but that's okay. I still have a gathering stitch in there, so it kind of started it off for me a tiny bit, and I just need to pull up that gathering stitch more. And then back at the regular machine now, before I attach this peplum, I'm just going to finish preparing it. So I'm going to put a small hem across the bottom. So I'm just turning twice, just little. Just fold and fold. Seam allowance going toward the back. And then the same thing going up the front. You could miter your corner, but it's a lot easier to just do it like that. Bottom first and then the sides. And you still get a nice looking corner there. And you know what? I'll just pull out a little bit of the needle thread here so that it doesn't get caught into the little hem that I'm making. So both ends like that. Okay, so I'm just loving the way it looks. I think it's going to be super sweet. And then I have that big hem that I cut off. So what if I turned it into a placket? Both sides would have this little placket coming down. So that gives me more room across the front as well. It's cute. And then I have that wider black ribbon. Oh, actually that looks quite interesting. Oh, I kind of like that. I was thinking either or, but I kind of like them together. And then this skinny ribbon comes out from there to make the ties. That is interesting. If I were to sew this right side together and make these pleats turn in, it's going to be bulky. What if I just have the serged edge down, overlap, cover it with the black grosgrain? Oh my gosh, yes, right? That's beautiful. Gotta slip that in there first though. So I think I have a plan. Now, just to complicate things, just because I can't leave well enough alone, the neck bothers me still, right? I want to drop the neck down. So that means a little bit more stitch ripping. I'm going to just remove that facing piece from the front and the lace and see if I can cajole it to come down at like about an inch lower. It also sits out like this, like it stands away, and I'm not going to be able to change that because it's not stretchy. In order for it to lay flat like that, it has to be able to stretch. So it's still going to be like that, but at least it can be lower. I think I can make it better anyway. So stitch ripping this, and if I want to use this as the placket, then I need to stitch rip that too. Just open up that hem. That'll be fine. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, so that little bit of the neck is opened up, and this piece is not cut on the bias, right? You can see the threads are coming off the edge there. So that's on the straighter grain. So that piece has no stretch. This little one, the little facing piece, same. It's not cut on the bias either. So none of that has any stretch. So I'm not going to be able to really make those pieces come down here. And yet, here I am proceeding anyway. And I'm just going to figure it out. Because that neck really does need to come down. It's just not nice the way it is right now. So here I am, bringing it down, blending this right back into the original edge. Make sure my lace is out of the way. I don't want to accidentally cut that. That would be bad. I almost feel like I don't need this piece. Like it's very stiff and it makes it stand up tall. So what would happen if I literally just cut it and then just sewed the lace back onto that facing piece? That would make it softer anyway. And is there a chance I can just kind of stretch that over? Or not really. Okay, so then if I just have it sit back from the edge a bit, and then I just taper this in. That is probably my best bet. So I've got that neck all pinned together, and I made the two sides just as even as I could. And now, here we go. Just a little bit of edge stitching. And I'm just going to pivot and come around the other way. Looks good on the outside, but that bit slipped down. I think I'll just sew it with this side up, just to make sure I catch that edge. And the stitching's not going to show through the lace anyway, so I think I'm fine. Good. Both sides like that. Good. I've think we got it. All right. And so I did try it on, and it's totally fine if I just blend that little corner right off. It's here that I need extra fabric at the bust line. I don't need it here. And when I kind of folded it back to there, it looked perfectly straight on the body. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. And now I think because I'm adding that extra placket down the front, I think I'm confident enough to sew up these sleeve openings. I think the sleeves are going to be fine. Maybe I won't serge quite yet though, just in case. Okay, so upon further reflection, I took apart the end of this collar again, and I'm folding in the edges here and setting it back a little bit, just so it's more like a little stand-up collar on its own. And then this front part will finish here instead of the placket coming all the way up to the top of this. I think this will be better. So I've got the facing pieces tucked in to sort of meet the outside. This would be a perfect time if you are the type of person that likes to hand-baste pieces together. That would be perfect to do because I want to keep this edge tucked in there. So that's a lot of layers and a lot of like attempt at being precise. Yeah, a little hand baste would be good there. But you know what? I'm going out for lunch and I want to wear this. So I'm trying to get this done. It's nice that the lace covers multiple sins. So yes, I think that's better. Then I'll be able to deal with that edge separately. That's going to look fine. So both ends of the color like that. So now I've got to figure out sort of the order of operations as to how to make this whole placket have everything coming together. So here's the peplum that's going to be gathered more. And I think I want that to be nestled in to that placket, but I want this to be on top of the placket. This is quite a complicated little corner. This is going to be under, and this I would love to have the ribbon tucked into that fold too. Like that just looks fantastic, right? I'd be super happy with that. And of course my little tie ribbons have to come under there as well. Oh, that's so pretty. So this tie ribbon will get sewn on just before I bring this up. So that comes later. This one has to be sandwiched in there. So I've got one solid line here. So this ribbon, I'm just going to treat it as if it's part of this, set back a little bit from the edge of the peplum. It's just going to get caught into that seam. And these are going to get sewn right side together, right? So this will be right side together, and the placket is going to be in there as well. Okay, so yes, a little bit of a complicated corner here. I think it's good if the edge of the placket meets up with the edge of the peplum. I'm going to keep the placket open at this point. Got that serged edge. That's going to be the one that's on the bottom to kind of cover everything nicely. So I think that all makes sense. So now that I have the idea of how this is all going to come together, I think I'm going to trim off like a serger width, like not even 1/4 of an inch off the raw edge of each of these pieces that I'm using for the placket, just so I get a cleaner finish on the inside. Otherwise, that would have been kind of sticking out past the serged edge that's going to be making the inside nice and neat. Then I'm taking these, and it's the raw edge that I want underlapping the edge of the jacket. So one will be there and one will be here. And then I want to make sure I've got the same amount sticking out. That looks like a good 3/4 of an inch, 2 centimeters. There. So those two are going to be just laying like that. And same here. 3/4 of an inch. Then I've cut my grosgrain in half, and I want to center the grosgrain over that raw edge. So lots of little pins just for that one little section. There. That's going to be beautiful. So that's centered. That will do. All right. So all I'm doing right now is just stitching straight across there. In fact, you don't even need to come to the machine with me. I'm going to be right back. So now the lower edge of the jacket is prepared for the peplum. And the jacket is quarter marked because it has side seams and center back. I did give that center back seam one more go just to make sure that all my little pleats and lace lined up as well as I could get them to line up. So that's quarter marked. This is not. It's kind of divided into three because it just has three seams. So it has a center back and the center fronts, but I just need to mark the halfway point. So just by folding it, I found my two little halfway points. Those will match up with the side seams. So the edge of the peplum comes right against the fold of the placket. The ribbon's getting caught in there nicely. I think this is going to work. And then there's my halfway mark. That has to go to the side seam. So yes, it's definitely enough fullness in the peplum. For sure, that's a lot. So 1.5 times was perfect. At least I hope so. And then I've got my 2 needle threads from this serging. And those just work the same way now that gathering threads work. So I just want to pull it up enough that it fits. Once I know that it fits, then I can start pushing around the gathers to make it nice and even. And you know what? It's not as much gathering as I thought. It could have probably handled more, but maybe this is just fine. When you have just a small amount of gathering, sometimes I feel like that's harder to distribute evenly because you do run the danger of having flat spots, and you don't want that. So the seam comes to the center back, the halfway point to the side seam. So I'll just continue to pin and pull up that gathering thread until the whole thing is fitting in nicely and the gathers are evenly distributed. I never think of it as pulling the gathering threads. I just think of holding them still and shuffling the fabric along. And then that's how I rarely break the gathering thread. And then lots of pins to make sure that those gathers stay where you want them. You don't want any bunchy spots and you don't want any flat spots. Okay, now that I'm at the halfway point, I'll find the gathering threads from the other side. And the gathering threads that I'm referring to are just the 2 needle threads of the serging. So just make sure you're not pulling one of the looper threads, just the 2 needle threads. Okay, phew. So now I just need to sew straight across there. So I'm just about to sew that peplum on, but if you're thinking that I should have sewn these layers together first, then you would probably be right. This one I don't want to put on till after, and I think you'll see why. But those 2, yes, I could definitely have run up those, but it'll be fine. I can do that after. It just would have probably made sense to do that, but that's okay. So for sewing on this peplum, I want all these threads out of my way. So with each section now between the pins, I'm just going to push gathers around even more just to make sure they are nicely distributed. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice amount of gathering, hey? Oh, I love it. Okay, so I didn't get it done in time for my lunch, which is too bad because the lunch I just went for, which was so lovely, was with the 2 Canadian women who were on my Seattle retreat. So Jane and Elizabeth and I just got together, had a lovely, lovely lunch, and now I'm back home. Gotta finish this. It's coming out so cute. I'm absolutely loving it. I like it so much better now than when it was a dress. It just was really not flattering as a dress. Just before I scooted out for lunch, I sewed this one side down, right? I zigzagged that edge down just so I thought I'll just get one side working so I know and it can be kind of processing in my brain while I go out for my lunch. So this side is sort of stitched down just on the outer layer. The inner layer still loose. But what's going on here is I was trying to figure out how long to make the tie. So I just took a little scrap and I made a little tie. Those are just 7 1/4 inches long. I think that's plenty. And with that little placket being added to each side of the front, I did not have to worry 1 minute about the shoulders or the underarms. Like, it's fine. I did not have to fuss and fret about that at all. And the peplum is looking so cute. I love it. I wore my jazzy pants for lunch, so Just bear with me here. This side is sewn. This one is just hanging out because I just did the end. So ignore that. And then there's my little pretend tie. But I just wanted you to see how cute the peplum is with that sleeve. Like, I just think this is adorable. I love it so much. It's so cute. So I just need a few more minutes. I think the hard part's all done. So there's no buttons, buttonholes, nothing. It's just ribbons and we're good. And so with it all nice and evenly pinned, then I'm going to run a zigzag stitch along there. And the reason I'm using a zigzag is to make sure that I'm catching this raw edge. It's going to end up getting covered with the serged edge of that hem piece. But right now I just want to do that. Then I've got a couple of things to do before I put this ribbon up and sew it down. But isn't that going to be beautiful? I'm super excited. So I still just have this little raw edge here at the top, no problem. And I'm using a zigzag that's 3.5 millimeters wide and 3 millimeters long. Okay, beautiful. So before I put that ribbon up, I want to stick the 3 ties under there. I don't want to cut them too short, right? My little test pieces were just 7 1/4, but I think I will do 8. So I need 6 pieces that are 8 inches. So now I shall have one at that bottom lace. If it just butts up against that edge, that's going to be fine. And then one close to the top. But I have to keep in mind I've got seam allowance that's going to be coming off here. So right about there is good. And then one right between. So if I measure top edge to top edge, it is 11.5. So 5 3/4 there. And just to double check. Yes, okay. Same on both sides. So these are just going to take a little back tack. Yes, okay. We're getting there. I might as well leave that zigzag stitch on. Get a bit more coverage. Same on both sides. So now with those in place, now the grosgrain can come up and just go straight up there. I definitely need to have it straight and even from the fold. Can I just eyeball this? Probably not. I'm just going to set it to be 1/4 inch away from the fold. But now when I'm pinning, I don't want to put it right through all the layers. I just want to reach under because I still need that bottom layer to be free. But it's easier to measure when it's folded. So I'm like being a little awkward here. And yes, I'm going to deal with the ends of these grosgrain ties momentarily. That is gorgeous. Okay. You know what I'll do? Okay, this might be brilliant. If I just sew this edge first, then I do my little flippy and fold it out. Then when I bring it under, that's when I'll sew here on the grosgrain. That's going to put my stitching. I'm just sort of simulating stitching. It's going to put my stitch line right there. That's going to be good. Okay, so for right now, I'll just sew that inner edge. And then I'll show you that little flippy I'm going to do. Okay, here we go. I want to be sewing now right on the edge of the grosgrain. Really nice and skinny there. And I'm pushing that seam allowance out of the way. Ah, I'm still in the zigzag. No, I think I want a straight stitch. Okay, well, that's not beautiful, is it? I don't love this. And I also don't love how far from the edge that is. I'm wondering if I should do a little zigzag over the edge because I don't love that. You know what? I'll just play with it right at the top here. Let's just see if I can do better. Oh, you know what too? This is the cross grain, right? So this has a fair bit of stretch. That could be why the grosgrain is wobbly there because it's the denim is stretching underneath it. Ow, didn't think about that. I'm going to do skinny, so 1.5 millimeters wide and 2 long. Let's try that. I'm going to keep some tension on the grosgrain so that the denim kind of gets eased in and not stretched out. Let's see what that looks like. I think so. I think that's nicer than that, isn't it? One more little practice test. This is a zigzag that's only 1 millimeter wide and 2.5 long. Oh, I still don't like it. Oh my goodness, I don't like it. What am I gonna do? 0.5 wide? Too long? Okay, 0.5 wide and too long. That is fine. Okay, phew. I took out the one I didn't like. I'm just going down that edge that's closer to the fold. Do you know what? We are going to learn to love that. I think that's fine. Good. Okay, both sides like that. Good. On this side, I can start at the bottom. Same thing though. Seam allowance out of my way. Okay, we are almost done. Little flip, both ends. Let me show you that. I also just ran to the serger and closed up all of my little bits and serged this edge too, where I had attached the peplum. Okay, so now we really are in the final stretch. See this corner. I want to clean that up, and of course I have to deal with the top edge here, but I'm going to do the two in the same way. I want to keep this tie out of the way. I don't want it to get sewn in anywhere right now. I want the peplum now to come up right side together with the jacket, and I want the placket to fold backwards on itself. I wish I had cut it a little more straight. It's kind of on an angle, so I'm going to have almost no seam allowance at the end there. That is okay. And all I'm going to do is sew straight across there. Now I can double check, is that going to turn out nice? Yes, beautiful. So it's just straight across there, and essentially the same thing at the top. That is a problem. This space is too big. So a little mini heart attack there, but here's a pretty easy fix. I'm just undoing that zigzag from the top few inches. And this is the zigzag where I just overlapped the placket and the body. And then I'm just going to overlap more. That's it. So even though this looks like it's on a crazy angle inside here, I don't think it's going to show at all. The grosgrain is still going to be straight. Do you know what I mean? That's still going to cover and look totally straight and fine. But now the grosgrain hits right beside the collar. So that is good. So I'm just going to run over to the machine, do that little zigzag, and I'll be right back. I think I'm good. I tried it on to make sure that it's sitting right. It just looks totally normal. And then I also sewed that little bottom bit just to show you how nice that corner is now. Look at that. It's nice on the inside, nice on the outside. There's a funny little glitch where you remember I was like, I should have pulled that down more. I can go back in and maybe fix that, but I'm pretty darn happy right now. So that's how I'm treating the bottom edge. And then the top edge is the same thing, folding the placket back on itself. Now I'm going to need to see where my edge is here. So I do need to trim off this extra. I'm just afraid to trim it off because bad things can happen, right? Okay, I can feel the edges right there. Okay, that is fine. Folding it back on itself, and I just want to kind of connect right to that cut that I made. So I'm just sewing right there. That's it. So for the bottom edge, strap out of the way, peplum down, wrap right side together along the fold, and then I'm just sewing that little 1/4 inch, like kind of just in line with my line of stitching there. Top edge, I gotta trim. That's what I kind of have to line up with. And then it's just flipperoo inside out. Just like that. So that's going to clean up all 4 corners, like the 2 top and 2 bottom. And then that just flips out. Oh, there we go. That's what we like. Okay, here we go. Wow, how do you like that? That is sweet. And notice I have not used the word beginner friendly on this project. This has been a bit challenging, but I love it. And then this was the corner that had some funny little that, right? So if I just sew up a little higher, okay, yeah, I'm going to just sew there. I think it'll be okay. Yeah, the other corner's better. It doesn't have this little sticky outy bit, but I can live with that. Right, that is just nice and smooth. This one's perfect. This one is a B+.
So if I really wanted to fix it, now that I've stitched it twice, I'm not going to, but I would just unpick it and wrap it a little more tight around when I do the fold. But if that's my biggest problem at the moment, then I can live with that. Final step. So I'm madly in love with how that turned out. So nice. And this serged edge is just there, ready and waiting to kind of finish it off for me. So I'm going to put a pin in the edge of the grosgrain, and look, it's catching that serged edge just beautifully, just as if I had planned it that way. And then I'll use that same skinny zigzag on this edge, and then I will be done. Yep, that's gonna be good. Oh my gosh, I love it. So I'm back on the zigzag with just 0.5 in the width and 2 in the length. Here we go. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I'm madly in love. Both sides like that. I have to trim threads, and I need to deal with the end of my ties. So let me show you how I'll do that. You probably know the trick with the tea light, hey? So I've got a tea light and a little bowl of water just in case. And I've practiced on a scrap. So all you do is just run, see that little frayed edge there? That'll just fray and fray, and so a little heat like that, it just sets it, and that's going to be hot for a second, so just be careful. And that's it. You just run the little end along the candle. This works great unless your ribbon is white, and if it's white, it's just going to look brown, but it works really well. It stops it from fraying, and it's easy. There, that's it. So this is done, and I am in love. Okay, I did my final press, I trimmed all my threads, and I am madly in love. I think this is one of the prettiest things I've made in a long time. I absolutely love it for fall. I just have it over like a little black tank top, but I could easily put it over a turtleneck or whatever I want for fall. I think this is going to be a really key piece in my wardrobe. In the photos online, they have it tied with just a knot. I went for little bows because I think that's cute, but of course you can do either. So thank you to Kathy and to Jane for the inspiration. I think this is really a nice trend to jump onto, and I think that this was the perfect garment to do it with. But really, any dress that has a nice sleeve with a little puff to it, you can sew up the zipper, cut it down the front, cut it off just below the bust line, and use the skirt part of the dress to create your peplum. Add a few ties and you're done. I'm not going to say that that's easy or beginner friendly even, because it was quite challenging in some areas, but for me, it was definitely worth it. I really am thrilled with the final product. So just before you go, let me remind you about the trip to Italy that we've got planned. We have a sustainable fashion tour of Italy. And now if you think I had fun thrifting in Seattle, imagine how amazing it will be to thrift in Italy. Going to some of the fashion capitals of the world, seeing all the beautiful sights and getting so inspired, and then thrift shopping in Italy. I'm just bursting with excitement. I really want you to join. So I'm going to put 2 links in the description. One is to the video that I made all about the trip, and then one is to the travel agent. So you can just click there for more information and to register. So yeah, come with me to Italy. Let's do it. So until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.